Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we unpack the messy, beautiful intersection of creativity and business with the artists, marketers, and founders shaping our culture. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Derek Smith, creative leader and brand strategist, Ben Levy, entrepreneur and business growth expert, and Dr. Jeremy Wise, founder of Rise 25 and a relationship-driven podcast strategist. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we are always open to more sponsors that align with our creativity. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a creative studio that produces entertainment, quality animation, and illustration for brands that want to stand out in gaming, entertainment, and pop culture. We help companies tell stories that resonate with imaginative audiences and turn viewers into fandom. Whether your brand needs creative strategy, an exciting trailer, a fully produced show, or an engaging motion graphics piece for your site, we got you covered. Visit getepicmade.net and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today, we have Thor Odinsson. Welcome to the show, Thor.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yeah, man, stoked to have you. All right, so Thor's career spans fine art, music production, running a record label, art direction, and production design for theater, television, and film, including music videos for Bjork, as well as large-scale event production and leadership roles in game studios. He's founded multiple companies, served as chairman of the Icelandic Games Industry Coalition, sat on the board of the Nordic Games Institute, and is now working on different businesses and creative projects, helping shape strategy at the intersection of games, culture, and commerce. Today, we are diving into the collision of art, business, and advertising, and what it really takes to build worlds and brands while living a creative, restless life on the road. Before we jump into today's topic, Thor, I'd love for our audience to know you a little bit better. How long have you been in your industry, and what project are you most proud of so far? And obviously, your industry is kind of an open-ended thing there. So, however you want to answer that.
Yeah, good question. I think the way I define it is that I'm in the experience industry. And so my favorite moment is when I see someone being surprised in a positive way and say the word wow. You know, if I'm able to facilitate someone having a near to spiritual experience or simulate the feeling of falling in love for the first time, then I feel I've done my job, right? And if I can bring people together to do that at scale and at magnitude, so I think I started working in the theater in Iceland when I was like 16, 17, doing stage stuff, props, stuff like that, doing fine art, doing music, doing video, doing computer games, events. At the end of the day, the result is the audience's reaction, right? And the experience of the audience. So I guess I can say I've been in the industry for about 30 plus years.
Wow.
The favorite project, I guess, you know, they're so diverse, right?
Sure.
I think, yeah. I mean, I've gotten to work with a lot of my heroes. I got to work on Darren Aronofsky's Noah. I got to work on Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I've gotten to make music videos for Bjork. You know, last 6 months I've gotten to help promote a lot of game products that I love. Before that, you know, there's different things that stand out, right? From business perspective, from creative perspective, and from people perspective. My fiance, she does a small. She's the production designer, kind of art director of a small music festival that's held in the north of Iceland, with all the little grassroots, music and art coalitions in that town. It's like a town of 40,000 people, so it's really small. But they managed to bring bands from all all over the country, and sometimes international bands. And then you have the local school band playing at noon, and it progresses through the night into like more metal and doom, and then after midnight it goes into techno and acid, and
I love
um
it.
and like I go there with her every summer, and I just like carry around parallels, build a bar with makeshift garbage, hand paint signs, work with all the people that are there just like as a volunteer, right? And it reminds me of being a teenager again. It's like being 18. You're just there with some people, and there's soul and there's heart, and at the end of the day, it's like everyone's going to show up and they're going to have a great time, and then you can um, feed off of periods of time like that for a long time, or I can at least, right? It puts fuel in my tank.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. I was literally going to say, like, it refuels you, and it's just creativity for creativity's sake. And it's like having an experience and doing all, you're not worried about making money and all the different clients. And always like, how do we make this so cool that everyone wants to keep coming back? And it just is a wonderful time. Like, I love that. And then making a bar out of trash, like, amazing. I do so much repurposing and upcycling here. And my wife and I have sort of built a whole life around that, actually, because we were very poor for a long time building our businesses. So the only options we had was to not have nice things or to figure out how to make nice things from junk. Like, so it's like, I love that, actually. That's beautiful. And I love, you might be the one of the most creative people I've ever met, which is something that people say to me all the time. And I love how diverse your creativity is, and that you can seem to find a way to point it in all these different directions, which is amazing. So I mean, you've moved from fine art to music to game studios to business development. What do you think that common thread is, that raw creativity? Like, how do you keep it exciting and keep injecting that creativity into all those spaces?
I think for me, I mean, it's a personal thing, but I think for me is I've found that it's hard to stay true to yourself in the commercial market, right, for very long. If you're I was making a lot of fine art and pop art and stuff in the late 90s, early turn of the century, and it sold really well. And all of a sudden the National Theatre of Iceland asked me if I would paint portraits of everyone working at the theater, all the actors, everyone that's had a birthday as a present. I was painting pictures of our old president, Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, when she was 60. She was the first female elected president in the world. Was kind of like a mother to everyone in the Iceland in the 80s. So, great
Wow.
honors were bestowed upon me, but it got to the point where I was just manufacturing, and I'm not complaining, right? The money was good. I got to do what I love, but then my need for, meditation, creative output, to be able to discover, to learn, when someone's paying you a lot of money to honor someone that everyone loves, it's really difficult to put on yeah, let's just wing it. Like, let's see if something fun comes out of it, right? So for me, it's been a journey of learning, discovering, doing, and then stagnating, and then needing to find a different way to um, reinvent, kind of reinvigorate the creativity, right? And if you do that for 30 years, you'll go in a few circles, right? So I've
Yeah.
gone in and out of the film industry quite a few times, some junior roles, mid-tier roles, leadership roles, ownership roles. And then, it's good to go back into the junior roles just to be, you know, in, be in touch, right? Because, if you forget the realities of being in the front line, then you can quickly, you know, you start living in an ivory tower, right? Um,
Yeah. Which is
but yeah, I
being a
think I
shit
think
leader.
the perfectly honest,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, I think the honest answer is, I would have probably been too shy to say this a few years ago, or a decade ago, but I think the honest answer is I get bored easily. I get bored with what
Yeah.
I'm doing, and if it's not challenging, or if it's not epic, or if it isn't, um, you know, so I think in a way that that flaw kind of perpetuates and fuels this, of something novel, something genial, you know. Um, does
I
that
don't
answer
think
the
that's a
question?
flaw. Oh, it totally answers the question. I love that. And I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's a need to be creative, right? And creativity needs new things, right? You can't do the same thing over and over again and feel creative about it, right? Like it has to have new ideas, a new infusion, new influence, a new approach, a new perspective, something. And if you're a deeply creative person, you need that. I went through a similar experience where, I started this company 20 years ago, and I realized about 8 years ago that like I hadn't really been doing much creativity because I've been running a business now, right? And fast forward, I started doing a live stream about 4 years ago, actually this month. And it's been amazing because it's like I get to reinvent and create a new piece of art every week on my live stream, and I just make art and just for art's sake. And I tap into that like kind of raw creativity, like let's just throw some shit around, see what happens, right? And I do a lot of different approaches and techniques, and I'll add in like something I physically drew with something digital with a painting from my father, and do some generative AI in the middle of it, and play with all these tools, and just to have something fun because it fills my cup every week and it's exciting. And when I'm done with it, I'm like, I made this thing. This is amazing. So I could totally respect that. And then my physical world, like I build all my stuff, build my desk. Every once in a while, I just have to like redo my whole office. Like I just moved everything over here the other week because it just felt stale, and like I need like something new and refreshing. And so I could absolutely relate to that. But when you have that deep creativity, you tend to like want to do it unique and special every time, and you're building on all the times you've done that in the past. So now when you're mixing, because I mean you've been from like theater to video games to like painting portraits and everything in between, that's amazing. And I'm sure they all influence each other as you're building on top of them because you've done these things before in this other different perspective, and you've got this unique view now that nobody has because of all the wildly different creative projects you've worked on. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think thank you. So I think it comes down to vocabulary in a way. I remember this really interesting class I had in the Art Academy in Iceland. So it was about the border of architecture and music, and obviously it was a philosophical class, and so but we were looking at rhythm. We were looking at the architectural drawings, photos of architecture, looking at different rhythms, the juxtaposition between different buildings in a street, how tall they are, all of the mathematical construction that you can see in architecture. And then we were trying to find music that was in the same tone, the same
Mm.
rhythm, the same mood. And we were trying to discover, like, and it's obviously it's always subject to your personal interpretation, right? You might see a building and it might feel intimidating to you from like some perspective, and I might look at it and I might be just like, wow, that's so elegant. You know what I mean? And why do we have these emotional connections to structures, three-dimensional structures? why,
Yeah.
why is why is it more appealing to have a brick wall, right, rather than a white wall, or tiles? And what is it, why does it make more sense to listen to blues in a brick and mortar house than in a marble laid
Uh,
foyer with a fountain? um and it's the same with painting, right? And with colors, we talk about deep colors, we talk about deep tones in music, right? So how would you color the sound of a bass line, right? Like a contrabass, right? Is that a blue
mm.
color? Is it a deep? or is it more of a brown, right? Like, it's definitely not pink, and it's not
No,
turquoise,
nope.
you know,
Blue was the first thing I thought
and
of,
I,
like a deep, almost navy blue for some reason. I have no idea why. Yeah.
so I think, there's mathematics everywhere involved. There's
Mm.
aesthetics involved. There's cultural memory. There's, your own personal feeling, right? You might be part of a culture, but you might be the black sheep of that culture. So you're the upsetter, you're the upstart. But can people still tell that okay, so you're counterculture within this culture, or are you just
Mm.
now a new culture? Um, and I think if you look at all of these things, independently, they might seem really unlike each other, but at the end of the day, for me, it's all about emotion and feeling and bringing people together, right? And whether that's through a game, a computer game, or just playing werewolf at a party with 10 friends, right? And if you get everyone laughing or crying, in a safe environment, right? Consenting adults,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean, or you're
of
able to
course.
make a whole theater just be like, the horror, you know, um,
Yeah, I
then
mean, what you're talking about the human experience, which is in general, like across the board, and our emotional reactions to all of the things, right? And there are emotional reactions to music and architecture and sound and all those things, and there are similarities between them. And artists are the ones who tone that sense and dial it in, tune that sense so that we can make those connections and take people on a journey and experience. And I think that's what you're saying, right? Like that intentionally designed things are here to communicate certain things to you, and that's also, no matter what you intend as the creator, like everyone's experience comes to the table. Like what's their cultural background, what things have happened to them, good, bad, or indifferent, in an environment that looked or felt or smelt like this, and like how does that connect? So, but it's beautiful, and I love the whole idea of curating an experience and making things a design for someone to have, and then getting the reward of seeing them have that experience that you made, like you talked about early on, like you like that's the ultimate high, getting people just to go, wow, this is amazing, right? Like every time someone walks into my little home office here, they do that. Like I've got vines growing all over the walls and the ceiling in my living room, and paintings and colorful lights, and but like I just forget about it because it's just like how I live my life. My wife and I are crazy creative. Like we want it to look like magical forest creatures live here in this house, right? So like it's but people walk in and have that immediate reaction when they're used to, like, these little, just standard, I don't want to offend anyone with my colorfulness, right? So I'm gonna have gray walls everywhere and basic furniture. And it's like, no, we don't want any of that in our life. So I can absolutely relate to that. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah.
it was a really funny moment, I think, when I discovered this. It was in, I think, 2006, 7. It was just before the financial crash, and
Mm.
Iceland. There was a lot of exuberance in Iceland leading up to the financial crash, and uh, so I was doing the bank galas, I was doing private parties for the rich and infamous, crazy things. Elton John came to Iceland and played a private birthday for someone. It was that type of
Amazing.
crazy. And then I get called by this production company I work with a lot, and they were like, we need you to do a wedding." And for me, I think I was, well, I'm 28 or something, and I thought I was the hot shit of everything at this point in my life. Full of ego and everything, and I was like, a wedding, you know, I'm not a wedding planner, right? If a film has a wedding in it, that's a chick flick, right? Why am I doing this? It was a
Oh, okay.
And I was kind of a little bit too rock and roll for it at the
Of
at the
course, I
time.
understand. Yeah.
But then I started to do this wedding, And I had a great time. I started working with some floral designers, and we designed this really beautiful set, like a little garden. It's in this huge outdoors area in an art gallery in Iceland. We made these, really long. I think it's like 11 meters high. These kind of um, these the ceiling out of different fabrics, and it was gorgeous, right? And I'm stood there with the chef in this kitchen we'd built in the end of the hall, and we're looking at this, and he's like, "Yeah, it's really beautiful, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you. I mean, hey, why are they asking me to do a wedding? I think I did an okay job." Blah, blah, blah. Then the bride comes walking in, and I saw her face, right? And she was just
Yeah.
absolutely like, you know, and that's when I realized, I was like, I've seen this face in the front at some of my music shows. I've seen this
Uh,
face in the this is it, right? It doesn't matter if it's a wedding or if it's a Rolling Stones concert, right? It's the and what's more beautiful than being able to give someone that experience on their special day that they've been excited for, and
Yeah.
I think that was that was a really humbling experience in a very positive way, right? uh, it was a gift, because it took my it kind of helped me to understand that the medium isn't so important, it's the
Mm,
outcome, you know um,
100%.
and at the same time, it's not about the art, it's not about the notes, it's not about the performance, it's not about the venue, but it's about the experience of the target audience, right? And
Yep. I love that. That's
but
really
yeah.
beautiful. And like you creating permanent memories for somebody like that woman will never forget that feeling, right? And then like that will be in her mind for forever. And you added value to someone's human experience on earth, right? Like we don't ever get any of the moments back. Like so let's make as many of them magical as possible, right? So I think that's really awesome. So and we're talking about like how building worlds. I mean, you've worked in gaming and stuff, and you started over here and you did these physical spaces, and then you've worked in games, and really like story and trying to make someone have an experience is sort of like the infrastructure of this, right? Like how does this happen, and what is the flow, what does it feel like? And that could be a video game or an event or whatever, but how do you think businesses should think about world building as a long-term business strategy and not just like a creative exercise?
So I think I think a lot of businesses today are playing buzzword bingo. We've been doing the buzzword bingo now for a little bit long, for my taste. I, AI today, I've got opinions. It's awesome,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
awesome, right? But I mean, I'm looking at artists that are losing their job, and people are actually putting out pictures of characters with six fingers, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at people that have no idea about storytelling or about art, color theory, about history, or any of the things I think you should know about before you start creating an immersive world that happens in that period, in this war, in this, you know, and it's all like, hey, ChatGPT, can you please tell me more about this? Can you explain this to me? Can you draw this out? Can you do this? And yes, we're drawing from the collective memory of mankind, but we don't we cannot validate the outcome because we don't have the intelligence to compare it to reality. You know what I mean? And hey,
Yeah.
that's okay for the home user, but when companies start doing that and trying to do that for the mass market, okay, but then it's been really helpful for coders, right? I know
Yep.
a lot of coders that a couple of years ago they were like, oh yes, this is amazing, it's really speeding up my process. Now people are talking about putting AI into the game engines to help, you know, help anyone be able to use Unreal, right? Like a master. But the thing is, it's a value chain, right? Like someone writes a snippet of code, then someone needs to evaluate that. And I'm looking
Yes.
at it now. I'm seeing a lot of my friends that are, some of the best in the business, talking about backend engineers of massive MMOs, right?
Yep.
Icelandic, American, different people. And everyone's saying the same thing. Yes, it's sped up the production of code, but then someone needs to go in and validate all that. So the bottleneck's been moved up the pipeline.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and and but because I understand the pipeline is not just the coder and you know it's a massive pipeline, and yes, we can take a step up the pipeline again and again and again, but what's going to happen at the beginning of the pipeline, that's going to get even quicker and even quicker. But what's on the end of the pipeline is a human being that wants to have an experience, right? If I take it back to that.
Yeah.
And a human being can only have so much experience in a day. So we have 19,000 games or something coming out this year, estimated on Steam alone. I think,
Probably.
might be wrong, but it's more than it's a massive amount. No human being can consume all the content that's being made. If you go
Mm.
into a comic book store here in France, there's like 30 new comic books that came out this month. I go to the record store and there's all these, yeah, you like German electro, or you like French house music, or you like this, or you like that. The amount of content that we're already producing, for entertainment is is tremendous. And I think in a way it's beautiful that the tools are getting better and better and better. It's more disconnect from the the idea to the consumer, as it were,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And from a mar
100%.
from and if you move this problem, you're able to move the bottleneck from code review or art review or text review or whatever that is, right? Because all of that stuff can be produced now instantaneously. Then someone has to review it, they have to revise it. Okay, so let's say we can skip those. We move the bottleneck. At the end of that whole funnel is the consumer, and unless someone is telling me that AI is going to be playing all these games and reading all these books and looking at all this art and having all of these experiences, I'm calling bullshit, right? And
Right.
it's being invested in so massively from the belief that it, like 20 years ago, if someone was disrupting a business, right, they were disrupting. Oh, we're coming in to we're a phone operator with mobile phones, and we're going to provide really good service. We're going to compete on service, and that was really disruptive 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Today, it's like all the money in the world is trying to be funneled into disruption of production. Um, but you know, the reality is that there isn't a market for it. For
Right.
the end product. If everyone's disrupting everyone, we're all going to be sat there trying to read the tutorial content that the other person is making. And yeah, I think I mean, definitely it's going to take us somewhere, but it's not going to be the 100x return on investment that everyone that's going into it is looking for, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
and
well,
I
it's massively over leveraged already, just from a financial standpoint. Like they can't all win. In fact, most of them are going to be losers in a really problematic way. But you're absolutely right. Like what I say in that space is that like it produces a lot of really beautiful noise very quickly, right? Because if you don't have the human experts in place to go, hey, you can't use this color here. You can't position this way. Like this person has 6 fingers. How did you not see that? Like, and 6 fingers is, it's a thing of the past now. Almost all the models have fixed that, but it's very, the fact that like 6 finger people went to mass market as a product launch on big ass companies, like this happened, like tells you everything you need to know. Like you need the experts there because you can't even see what you like. You don't, your eyes not trained to notice the problems, right? Same thing with the coding side, right? There's lots of errors, there's lots of problems, lots of security issues. Like there's lots of things where it's like you need an actual person who's an expert in this code to evaluate it and make sure that it's okay. There's uh, every time I see, I love the way you positioned about the bottleneck because it does just move the bottleneck, right? Um, to a different part of the production chain. That said, like, people will have to adjust and be living there more. But there's always going to be a time and a place, I think, for people to do things manually. I think programming in itself, it's like computers writing computer language. It feels a little more native to me, like they can do that well. I don't know. But like I'm not a deep programmer. I haven't done much since like Notepad and HTML5 or 4. Like it's been a while. Um,
Well, it's
yeah, but
it's
yeah,
perfectly
good.
fine if you're doing something that's been done before,
Yeah,
right? If you just want a Renaissance painting, right, then it's gonna be able to,
gonna make
it's
one.
got something to chew on, right? If
Yeah,
you wanted to make you a player controller for a platformer, and if you specify a Celeste-esque platformer, it can do that because the code is
yep,
readily available and there's a YouTube video on how they did it, and like and me and you, we could look at that material and we could program. I've actually done this, right? I've made
yeah,
a really nice player controller. I could have never been the first person to do that, right? And if you're not planning on doing anything genial, right? If you believe that we're at the point where we've done everything humanly possible, we've come up with everything, then it's fine, right? But then we can just regurgitate. But
yep.
but
It,
but yeah,
100%.
I
Like
mean,
there's no innovation coming out of this. It is all reconfiguring things in a way that isn't necessarily human, right? Like human perspective is an individual thing, right? It's like the way you specifically see a thing will allow you to interpret it and do have a different execution than anyone else could because you're a human being with all of your lived experience. I don't know how AI having so much data and so much information, but not all the contextual emotional relevance and resonation that like it allows an artist to create something innovative, right? And I think we have like all these brands now stepping into different ways of pop culture and interactive spaces, and it is now easier than ever to produce a video game. But is it going to be good or not? I don't know. It's easier than ever to produce an animated video, even a real action live action video. They have AI movie awards, AI, what is it called, film festivals, and 100% AI. You've got one or two people making full length live action video that's all AI generated, and they're decently good stories, right? But the only way that happens is if the person's a great storyteller and they understand what great cinematography is and what great shots are and what great music sounds like, and they have all of that expertise. They just didn't have the technical expertise to execute each one of those pieces, right? So I think there's something happening there that's interesting. But you need the human being to use it as a tool, right? This can't replace creativity. If you're not creative at all, you're not going to be able to make anything meaningful. You're going to make some beautiful noise and not understand what separates, surface level aesthetics from deep storytelling that actually creates fandom and gets someone excited on an emotional human being level.
mhm. And
That's my
I think it's
soapbox.
also right. Like, yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And I think it's in a way, if we take this over to business, right? We're talking about starting a new business. One thing is being
Yep.
creative and how do we feel when we're making art and viewing art and why do we do it and all that stuff. Like, I mean, if we're making business, at the end of the day, it's about making money. And we all need to pay rent and make a living and buy bread and all those things. But for me, when I think the best way to create a new business is to discover a pain.
Yes.
Right. If I come in and I say, well, you've got Excel, you've got a spreadsheet, I've added a function. It's a really niche function, but like, I've added a function to it. You're going to be like, well, okay, this might, maybe if I discover the feature, might streamline my, it's not really a pain, it's more of a nuance, or nuisance. So,
Right.
so the question is, if you have a massive pain in your life, right? Like, you'd pay money to not get bitten by mosquitoes if you're in Thailand, right? You'll buy a
Right.
product for that, right? So if you were going to go swimming in shark-infested waters and someone was selling shark repellent cream that actually works, you'd probably pay more for that than for the mosquito cream, because
Of
being
course.
bit by a shark is fucking horrendous, while
Right.
being bit by a mosquito is a little bit annoying. But I think there's a lot of innovation happening today that isn't solving for pain. Right? Uber solved for pain. Getting a
Yeah.
taxi, getting around the big world was fucking annoying. And now you have an app and it solved the pain. It made life easier. It was a massive success. Tinder solved for loneliness. I don't drink alcohol. Do I go to the swimming pool and be a creep to the ladies in the hot tub? Do I try to chat some
Right.
girl up in the no, now I just have an app and I can just like, you're cute, you're cute, you're cute. Oh, you also like me. Hey, let me text you. And it solved loneliness for a lot of
You,
people, right? It's a
it did.
massive
Yeah.
pain, and again, that comes back down to the human experience, right? How do you feel, Carl? What can I do for you today that will encourage you to send me money? And now we're doing
Yeah.
business, right?
Yep.
and I think that's forgotten. It's because it's this. Oh yes, we're gonna disrupt. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. We're gonna da, 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 da. And then this guy is, in the comic book, is being thrown out the window for saying like, who's asking for this? Like, who needs this? No one needs this.
Right.
But that's my take on modern economics, is that a lot of things are being invested in because of the unicorn, money's eternal search for the next unicorn, and the 100x exit. But there is no market for this stuff, and most
Right.
people just are living a good life, and they don't need their life to be disrupted every 2 weeks. And if you think about it, like, this is just a funny way to describe this. um you know with um, all due respect to every religion and people's religious belief, this is not about the religion. But if you think about all technological progress that we know about, like, excluding how they built the pyramids and some stuff, right? But all scientific knowledge that was created before Jesus, before the year zero, and we can call that like one Jesus. Okay.
Okay.
The same amount of innovation happened in 1300 years as all of time before zero.
Sure.
And then the Gutenberg press, and then this, and then that. And in 1900, we were having these epiphanies daily, right? We were curing measles. We were inoculating people. We were, flying airplanes. We were the steam engine,
Boom, boom,
and
boom.
just the frequency of,
Electricity, computers. Yeah.
today, like even in the 80s, it had gotten to a frequency that you couldn't even quantify how the period of Jesus, right? It had gotten so short. And
Yeah.
today it's just like, I could live the rest of my life with modern technology and never need for anything. But it's
Of
this
course.
belief that we need to keep pushing, right? There's a 100x exit on the other end of this. And I'm here like, is your product fun? Can you make me
Yeah.
laugh? right? Are you
Yes.
entertaining me? Is this food good?
Yeah.
Do
Does
I
it
like
have
do I
poison
like
in it? Or like,
yeah,
yeah, is this
yeah,
poisonous
yeah,
food? You don't live in the
does
States. It's bad over here, bro. Like, anyways, yeah. Yeah, I agree. We're all just like it seems like our species is just chasing that 100x exit like a dollar amount. And it's not our species, it's the stockholder class and the people with all the money want more money because they don't have enough somehow. It's like that's gonna fill the void that they're looking for. It's like, hey, maybe just like find community and like have deep, meaningful interactions with some human beings. I bet that's a lot more rewarding than going from I got hundreds of millions to I need billions. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, what are you gonna do with billions of dollars that you couldn't do with hundreds of millions? You're still gonna be miserable. If you're searching for happiness, it's not there. Like, yeah,
I think the really ugly thing about it, right? If we just look at it from, we just say it straight out. So all of this investment is going to lose money, and what it's doing really is it's betting against humanity, right? Because
yeah,
what's AI going to do? It's gonna take your job away from you, or from your friend, or from someone else. It's gonna invalidate the human's need for other human beings. That's the
sure,
bet, right? We can automate the whole world. And so my question on the other end of that is, well, can you also automate consumerism? Because if you take everyone's job away, they can't buy your products, and they'll all be, we can all write a book before noon, but who the fuck is going to read it, right?
right. We're
And
already producing more content that we could probably consume, like you were saying. Like, 20,000 games are coming out this year on Steam. Like, are all those games even going to get played? Definitely not at a
no,
rate that like justifies the even if it's made entirely with a human being working with AI. Like, it's not going to justify the time spent in it from a return on investment of livable wage type of thing, right? So it's an interesting time that we're going into. I did have one random question for you that I wanted to get into though. So you've done so many different things in your career. What's a creative bet you haven't taken yet, and why?
a creative bet.
Yeah, yeah, like something you
I
you you think you should do, but you haven't, but you can't. Like I don't know. Like maybe that's like, yeah,
think today, what I'm trying to do today, which I haven't done in a long time. So I've sold everything. I've left the safety of Iceland. I've gone to Europe. I have enough money. I could go to Thailand and never work a day again in my life, but like it's a little bit more expensive in Europe, not as expensive as Iceland.
sure.
I'm sitting here drinking coffee, drawing pictures of the French, street life. I'm building myself a little modular synthesizer that is roadworthy. And I don't have it. It's going to arrive in a couple of weeks, but I'm playing a gig in 6 weeks. So I'm going to have 3 weeks to do that. And
Amazing.
what I'm really fascinated with is I want to go to Morocco again, and I want to take this machine with me, and I want to meet all the percussion players. I don't know if you've ever been in the streets of Morocco, but like
No.
there's live music everywhere, or like on the squares, and people just playing these different. You have Iranian music, you have Moroccan music, you have African music, and it's just the palette is just it's like if you walk through an Indian spice market, but for the ears, right?
Oh, I love
And
that. That's a great analogy.
so I want to go and sit there with a little modular synthesizer and some drum players, and just like you know play Middle Eastern scale based drone music, and just channel the desert. And you know uh,
I
but
love that.
it's I mean, people get killed there, right? People keep telling me it's a dangerous place, right? Don't bring any valuables, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But I'm like, hey, if someone's going to kill me for playing music, then, you know, what are
Well,
you
it
going to
sounds like
do,
you've already
right?
kind of like
Um,
let go of all the deep material bullshit, right? So like, I doubt someone's gonna be like, "I'm offended by your music and you need to die." They might come up and try to rob you, and just give them whatever they want, like whatever. You just buy a new one, Like, Yeah, and nowhere on earth safe. Like this whole fallacy, like we evolved from the woods. We used to get eaten by large predatory animals. Like like no, Earth isn't safe. This idea that we have these nice little safe houses and everything, law and order is it's temporary and definitely very delicate at best. But yeah, so that sounds like an amazing adventure, Thor. I definitely want to hear updates if and when you do that, which is so cool. But so we are coming up on time, and before we wrap, I do have one last question for you. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you would like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a mentor, a valuable resource, or favorite client?
Ah, there's just so many great people, right? I'm lucky enough to understand that like I wouldn't be anything without the great people I met along the way, my teachers and colleagues and friends. I think I think I want to use the opportunity to shout out my old professor from the Art Academy, Gottur, Guðmundur Oddur, who was Dieter Roth. I don't know if you know him. He's quite a famous German artist that settled in Iceland. Gottur was his student, and Gottur was this really cool hipster spiritual rock and roll guy with a long gray beard. I guess I'm turning a little bit into him maybe as I age. He would show up, on a Wednesday morning, and he'd just be like, "Okay, guys, delete all the programs from your computers." Right in 2000, this is the year 2000, 99, 2001. I don't want you to design with tools, right? Design with your mind.
Ooh,
Design what you're doing, then you can install Photoshop or freehand or whatever program you're using. If you cannot design with your mind, a tool is not going to help you. The day after, he would show up and he'd be like, okay, so you have Apollon and you have Dionysius. Apollon has the ruler, he has the schematics, he has the workshop, he can build anything. His mind is empty of ideas. You have Dionysius, who is the acid trip, the soiree, the decadence. He has all the ideas. He has never done a productive thing in his life. If these two never meet, so you have to figure out how you live in the oscillation of being extremely creative and then have the discipline to come down and actually make what you're doing.
that
These
that
are
has been the
these
dance of my whole life. I
yeah.
love it. I love that you use
So
Greeks, by the way. I'm Greek. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so he would come in every day, and every day it was like, wow, that's mind altering, right? And then he'd just be
Yeah.
like, okay, what are we doing today? And like, just do something nice. What do you want to do? You want to draw? You want to learn Photoshop? What do you want to do? Um, so yeah, I think he passed away sadly last year.
Oh no.
A moment of great grief in the Icelandic art community. I'm not alone in my opinions of this man. There were hundreds of people that studied directly under him, but he was also a big part of the Icelandic kind of spiritual community. He was a big part of uh, you know uh, he was a historian of design. So he touched a lot of people in his lifetime, and yeah, Guðmundur Oddur,
That's
what a
beautiful.
guy.
Well, he lives on
It's,
through all of you
mm,
all and your creativity, and and how many people has he influenced, and how much of that ripple effect goes throughout the world, right? Like that, absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. That might be the coolest thing anyone's ever said to that answer to that question. So thank you. Um, awesome,
well,
and
thank
I
you.
give. Yeah, for sure. And I want to give a big shout out to to Mario Kroll, who made the introduction to our mutual friend over at Uber Strategist, and he was about 4 episodes back. A great episode with Mario. Yeah, but so we've been talking with Thor Odinsson. You can check Thor out on his LinkedIn page. So look him up. It's Thor Thorgeir dash Odinsson OdinSSON. Is there any other place that we could direct people to connect with you, or is that the best?
I think that's the best if people want to communicate. I have way too many different art aliases and, weird electronic music, or I'm on some pixel art forums. I'm everywhere. But like, if you want to talk to me, then find me on LinkedIn, and I usually answer everyone, and to the best of my
Awesome.
ability, right? And
Awesome.
I love people, so don't be shy.
Same. We definitely relate on that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Thor. It was really great having you on the show, and we will see you all on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.
Thank you, Carl. It's been a pleasure.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.